Hello, hello, Cassandra.
Ladies.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Cassandra, for lending us your IG platform. Um, I am here. My name is Joe. I am one of the co-directors of We Still Move. And yeah, we're here to talk a little bit about our healing, our care rituals at home that we've been doing for the last couple of months. And so to get us started, I just want to share a little bit about who we are. We're a community-based organization cultivating well-being, resilience, and joy through movement and the healing arts. Our trauma-informed programming is by for queer people of the global majority, centering and celebrating ancestral wisdom and emergent practices. We envision a world where embodiment paves the way for community and possibilities, creating culturally affirming spaces to reconnect with ourselves and with each other. So today we are really, really happy to talk a little bit more about our Healing Artists Directory, in which Cassandra is part of. So in the past couple of years, we have been building a Healing Artist Network that consists of over 25 BIPOC leaders here in the neighborhood, here in Los Angeles. And together we've been uplifting culturally rooted healing practices. And so we've been having hosting community clinics. And with the current administration and the attacks in our community, our programming has pivoted to go online to be able to provide a healing space from the comfort and safety of their own home, unfortunately now, but hopefully in the future we will continue. And so today, we will start with Cassandra Floyd, who I mentioned has been one of our practitioners for a very long time. And she's here to talk to us a little bit about the workshop that she will be leading later on in the month called Mysteries and Secrets of the Lower Place. But before we get
The lower
started,
palace.
yes?
The
A
lower
little,
palace.
sorry, Lower Palace? Okay. All right, make that, sorry about that. And
That's
so
okay.
Floyd, also known as the Daughter of Fates, is a multidisciplinary healing art practitioner, educator, and spiritual advisor with over 20 years of experience bridging alternative medicine, Western health sciences, and spiritual leadership. She holds 4 degrees in the healing arts, including a Master's of Science in Traditional Chinese Medicine and Acupuncture, and brings deep clinical training alongside extensive teaching and experience from elementary through college level education. Um, and an artist and long life activist, Cassandra weaves music, movement, visual arts, and earth-based practices into her work, creating spaces that integrate embodiment, creativity, and liberation. As an ordained minister and founder of the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence, she supports individual communities in conscious evolution through grounded, inclusive, and transformative healing experiences. So that's a little bit of Cassandra, and today we're more about who she is. And so welcome to this platform today. And I'd like to start first with, being a person that holds so many different, modalities. How did you get to this point to choosing to be a healing practitioner?
Well, I'm going to try to make an enormously long answer short. Mostly, the pivot in my life occurred when I became a mother. I was 20 years old when I had my daughter, and it was out of necessity. And I think that so many people that I've met along this journey, especially going through medical school, our professors used to say all the time that most people go into fields of medicine or psychology to understand their own neurosis. They go to medical school to learn how to self-diagnose, basically, right?
Mhm.
And so with me, it was my daughter. My daughter was very sickly the first like 8 months of her life, and I kept feeling perpetually frustrated, and the frustration became rage when these people, men, who were supposed to know more than my uneducated 20-year-old self, and doctor after doctor after doctor, visit after visit after visit, medication after medication after medication, and nobody could do anything for my daughter. Nobody, quote, knew how to help my baby until my baby ended up hospitalized with double pneumonia. It was an old black nurse that finally told me, baby, how many doctors have you taken your baby to? I said 6. I said 6 in the last 3 months. She said, and nobody told you that your baby has double pneumonia? Within 5 minutes of seeing my baby, after months of taking my baby, I was so outraged and so disgusted, and that I said, this won't ever happen again. My baby ended up hospitalized for 3 weeks. And I said, this shit will never happen to me again. It will never happen to my daughter again. So I started buying every book I could possibly buy on herbs, on how to use herbs. My baby and myself became my perpetual guinea pig on how to use herbs. Well, that one worked. That one didn't. I can laugh about it now, but it was serious, because anybody that has been a parent, anybody that has taken care of an elderly parent knows there is nothing more disempowering than to be able to not be able to help the person that you are responsible for, you are caring for. And so I spent years self-teaching on herbs, how to use herbs, how to mix herbs, how to apply herbs, the different method of consuming herbs or applying herbs or taking herbs. And I joined this political organization that had an aspect of the organization that dealt specifically with the health and educational disparities peculiar to the Black community. And this was when I was in Tampa. And a part of that organization was me directing the health food store, and we had a wellness center where we did free wellness program, where we had a free wellness program where we did monthly events for the community, free for the community. And then we would partner with like the local nurses organization or whatever. And so whenever we would have an event, they would come and do like free blood sugar checks or free, we would work with the health department. They would do free confidential HIV screenings. So every time we did an event, we would partner with different organizations that would come and provide free services for the people who participated in the event. And I loved it. But there was a period, I guess I was about 30 years old. So this is years now. It was about 30 years old where I felt like I'd hit a brick wall. I'd reached like this place of limitations in terms of what I could offer the community based on the information that I had being a self-taught herbalist. You know what I'm saying? That I only knew so much. I did not have a mentor at that time. This was out of desperation for a very real issue in my personal life that got me on this path of learning everything that I could and how to take care of my daughter, how to advocate for my daughter if I ended up having to take her back in one of these spaces. And there was a moment, very clear moment, where I had really reached the limitations of what I felt like I had the ability to help people. And it's crazy. It was kind of, in hindsight, it was kind of like a eureka moment, because I'm feeling really frustrated. And that frustration over time, because I'm going through this shit right now. So even saying this out loud, I'm like, oh my God, I've been here before. That frustration can become something that changes your attitude and like your perception of what next? What am I supposed to do next? Right? And the same, maybe 2 months after I started really having this kind of identity crisis, if you will, I was reading like the local health magazine, and there was a big ad about a school that had just opened up about an hour and a half away from where I was. And it was the only school today. It remains the only school in the country that offers a Bachelor's of Science in alternative medicine. I was like, oh! It was like the sky opened up. I was like, I have to go here. So that's how I ended up going through the process of like taking what I'd already learned and making its application make sense. Right. And so that was my undergraduate, was a Bachelor's of Science in Alternative Medicine at Everglades University. And then I got a mentor when I was finishing up that program, because my thing was I was going to go on to, my plan was I was going to come out here to Bashir, which is in Washington, and pursue a master's degree in botany. I was a left brain nerd. I'm a Virgo. I have to know why. I hear what you're saying about how the herb works, but I need to know the science of why the herb works. I loved looking at plants and chemicals under microscopes. I was like the hardcore left brain nerdy geeky type, right? And so botany just seemed like a perfect answer. Mm-hmm. My mentor was like, don't do that. I can laugh about it now, but he was constantly grinding me up about what was going to be my pursuit later in life. He was like, everything that you want to do, everything that you learned in your undergraduate, you have the ability to do as an acupuncturist, as a doctor of Oriental medicine. All of these things that you learned in your undergraduate that you would not be able to use or just use legally in this country, like as a practitioner, everything that you learned in your undergraduate would fall under the protection of you being an acupuncturist in this country. I was like, oh, that's amazing. I'd never even considered acupuncture. So that's how I went on to pursue my other 3 degrees, which were another Bachelor's of Science in professional health sciences. So that's like the Western health sciences. That's all Western medicine. That's the Merck manual. It's pharmaceuticals. It's radiology. It's gynecology. It's ear, nose, and throat. It's all of that. All the Western medical stuff. And then the master's degree was in traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture, and then an associate's degree in manual therapies and massage therapy. Mm-hmm. And so that was 9.5 years of medical school, with 1 summer off. Mm. I took 1 summer off in 9.5 years. I went straight through, full time. Straight through. It was, in hindsight, it was insane. It's what I did was insane. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I teach, because I've taught so many workshops since I've been here in California, and what was really striking about California is how many people, particularly indigenous people, men and women, how many indigenous people still have some level of access to their traditional medicine, right? The application, the old ways of their medicine. The thing that made itself clear to me when working primarily, because to this day, the majority of people who are I either work directly with or are patients or anything like that are Mexica. They're Mexican people, right? The majority, I'd say 85% are Mexican. And so I find that, and this is across the board. This isn't just with indigenous people. Every space that I go to, every place that I've been in the country, this is the missing link. And I would never have seen it myself as a self-taught herbalist until I went to graduate school. All the music school, it was not until graduate school that there was like this instant light that came on. The thing that's missing. Because colonialism, conquest, gentrification, the removal of huge portions of people's communities through the preschool to prison pipeline, all of this has disrupted our flow of information from one generation to the next. All of it. Culturally, it's a pet peeve of mine right now, is how culturally disconnected millennials are from their parents, from the generations of the past. There has been a deliberate severing of cultural ties, foundational ties, that would inform coming generations of how better to advocate for themselves, to apply the information that they got from the older generation. Right. And so this applies in medicine in a way that it was clear to see. Mm-hmm. And so the way that I teach, and let me just simplify that. The disconnect that I see, no matter how good an herbalist is, no matter how much of their ancestral medicine they have been able to maintain access to, no matter how dynamic, quote, the manual therapies are that they apply, there's a thing that is missing, and is missing everywhere and in every space. And it's going to seem really simple. It's the diagnostic process. It is to be able to formulate a complete picture of who you are looking at in real time, not only to help mitigate the symptoms that brought them to you in the first place, but how to create a tapestry of who they are and what got them to this moment. So even while you are treating the symptoms, alleviating the symptoms, this formula that you're using, this compilation of herbs that you're using, the implication or the application of manual therapies can be getting to the root of the condition, even while you are applying herbs or therapies that can immediately give them comfort when they are having symptoms that they perceive as crisis. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, no, I see that. And I feel like I've seen that also across a lot of different other, for instance, in therapy or in other, when they're asking, like, we can't just see what you're, talking about what you're feeling now, what happened yesterday, what happened a decade ago, what happened, and your family member in, decade, 100 years, intergenerationally. And so, and that is, yeah, a true factor. And then you bringing it back to colonization. How do you then, see all of this gap? How do you then, in your practice, kind of mitigate that gap? Like, is there a way in which you, practice where that brings that whole self into the conversation of
Yes. Yes. And I have to warn people, like when I do the intake process for a new client, I have to warn people that some of the questions that I ask you in your mind will not make sense to why you came here. Some questions will not be comfortable for you to answer. If you are not comfortable answering them, you can tell me, can we skip that? That's okay. That's still in this space about honoring your sovereignty, right? But so the intake process, which is something I have taught before, and I'll say this, that the way that I approached medicine, when I went to medical school, I didn't go to medical school as a regular everyday person. I did not. And that is what made, I'm certain, that's what made me a different type of practitioner than like the brothers and sisters, the men and women that I went to school with. I went to school as a hardcore Black nationalist revolutionary in a, at the time, 42-year-old cadre style organization. Okay. I went to school as a revolutionary. I went to school having been steeped in hardcore socialist, Marxist, Leninist ideology, well informed, having read every single speech Mao Zedong ever made. Like, I was really about that life. So even when I went to school, because that same organization I was working with was who I was doing that work with for the program, the wellness program that was dealing with health and educational disparities. But another aspect of my work with that organization was I was doing internet radio. This was before YouTube was even a thing. And so we did live international radio. We had a 24-hour radio station, live shows 24 hours a day. And I did two shows, but the one that was centered around health was called Galactic Seed. What's up, Alapia? It's good to see. I was just thinking about you today, man. Wow. So anyway, it was the name of the show was Colonialism is Bad for Your Health. And the reason I called the radio show that was, first of all, the organization I worked for had 20 years prior had a little, like they have a paper, like the Black Panther paper. And they used to do a little segment at the end of every paper called Colonialism is Bad for Your Health. And somebody would write up a little blurb about, like, take this herb or do this thing, yada, 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 right? So I was like, that's what I'm going to call the show, Colonialism is Bad for Your Health. But I didn't want, and at that time, this was early 2000s. This is like maybe 2002, 2003 when I started doing the show. I hated, there were a ton of wellness shows at the time, but they were all so boring. so boring. Listen, even when I was teaching high school and middle school, I was like, I empathize with kids who go dead in the eyes and then want to put their head on the desk. I was like, I'm never going to be that kind of teacher. I'm never going to do that. So having that in my head about how boring it was to listen to really awesome people at the time, a lot of authors that I really respected, but their shows, it was like wading through tar. You feel me? And so it's like, how am I going to do a show? What's going to be the angle that is not going to bore people into submission? Mm-hmm. And so one thing that I did is I am a geek. I love peer-reviewed journal articles. I can read a peer-reviewed study like I'm reading, a taboo novel. I love it, right? And though I can understand what I am reading with all the jargon, with all the extra complicated words and shit, that is a very colonizing thing, by the way. It is a very colonizing tactic, by the way, which I was aware of, right? I was like, okay, so I'm going to have these peer-reviewed journal articles on my show. The show was 2 hours long. I'm going to read the article just as it is. And then I am going to function as the translator for this shit that these people attempt to deliberately keep secret so that they can continue. This is my personal position. Somebody might be upset. But going to medical school, baby, let me tell you something. Going to medical school, having been only one of 3 Black graduates in my class out of 157 graduates, there is nothing more sobering than medical school if you have the right brain when you go. See, I was a revolutionary when I went. So I'm able to see that dog whistly, that just below the surface, but always present and always palpable language that always makes people of color in general and Black people in particular internalize that it is some type of inherent weakness on their Black ass part or their native ass part or their Mexican ass part. That is why they perpetually say that it is some type of flaw in your genetics that makes you, quote, predisposed to, oh, it's hereditary. Oh, well, if you just didn't eat no pork, you would be all right. If you didn't have that extra cigarette on the weekend, you would be okay. I was like, no, we have to demystify medicine. We have to demystify and make applicable so that a person with a 3rd grade education can understand clearly how they can become the sovereign of their own universe. What's their own universe? This right here. This that they mama gifted them with in the 9-foot radius electromagnetic field that is here to help secure their lives while they experience ecstasy on earth. That's the only reason we're supposed to be here. That's the only reason we are here, is to experience the bliss and the ecstasy and the majesty and the abundance that the mother continues to try to provide for us, and we are perpetually denied because of a split in the cultural consciousness. This split that happened, I won't go into detail about that, but at some point, this split that represented the masculine aspect of the one perceiving itself as something outside and above the one. And it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And so for me, going to medical school, hearing medical school was such a learning experience. I had a wonderful, wonderful time. But at the same time, I am in school for, quote, alternative medicine. And I'm going to tell you what alternative medicine means is all that witchy shit that them colored folks did when we first met them. That's alternative. See, the real medicine is what we Europeans created in opposition to the witchy shit all these other people were doing when we met them. But now that witchy shit is trendy, and we see how we can make 70, well, at the time that I was in medical school, so I'm sure it's much more than that now. But at the time I was in medical school, an $80 billion a year industry. And so now we need our cut. It used to be witchy, but now we need our cut.
Now it's acceptable.
And so here we go into school learning about our shit. Excuse me for being frank, but y'all know me.
Right, right.
Learning our shit from predominantly white practitioners.
Right.
I'm learning Native American plant medicine from a white woman who calls herself a shaman. I'm learning, traditional Chinese medicine. That program was 4 years long. And I can count on one hand how many Asian professors I had in that program. You see what I'm saying? And so here, even the medicine has been colonized and fed back to us in this way that doesn't empower, that doesn't embolden, that doesn't give us the ability to recapture sovereignty. To be sovereign is to be able to be like mended, right? This split from left brain to right brain, from conscious mind to subconscious mind, from spirit to flesh. All these divisions are parts of how patriarchy came to be in the world in the first place and exists everywhere in medicine, culturally, or whatever. So when I teach, when I was doing the show, if it's complicated, this gives it the validity to read the entire article, to be able to clearly articulate what the conclusion, what the hypothesis was, what the conclusion was of the article for those, Western-minded, like myself, Western-minded people who act brand new. They act like they can't hear what you're saying when you talk plain. You feel me? Because it's not, articulate, right? Okay, so y'all need that. Let me read it how it is, explain it how it is, and then let me quote and get hood with it. So these people who may have been forced out of school, who only read on a 3rd grade level or an 8th grade level, but still have a right to have access to this information. Let me break it down in a language that you can understand and walk away being able to apply in your life. If you're not doing this as a practitioner, you're in the wrong line of work. That's my personal opinion.
Right. So as you know, there's a lot that happens in one of Cassandra's sessions. At the same time, you go into a deep dive of what really is what's impacting our well-being.
Yes.
And misrepresentation, not having real, people who look like you, people could, speak like you. And so that's been the big problem in the industry. And we can go in and talk about why. And I think you pinpointed of all those reasons. And I would love to do a deep dive on how, because I think a lot of people in higher education, especially people of color, women, people of color, have a hard time because they don't have those anchors to remind them that you carry a wealth of knowledge that should be recognized and you should be validated, but of course it's often not foreseen that way. And so you come in already with, I think, the consciousness, right? The reading with the revolutionary could have seen through the lines. And so and yeah, and I think that's why the sessions that I have received with you have always been very powerful. Like I've always been very connected to where I was healing. And I know we probably could break this interview into many segments and have its own half. But I really would love to spend like maybe 1 or 2 minutes just talking a little bit about the mysteries and secrets of the lower place. It's
Palace. Palace. Yeah.
Palace.
Palace.
That Cassandra is going to be leading on February 28th at 10:30 to 12. And this is happening on a Saturday. So it's about a week from now. And so, yeah, could you tell us a little bit more about what this class is going to be and what would people expect?
Yes. So the workshop that I will be teaching on February 28th at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time is called the the mysteries and the secrets, the mysteries and the magic, something like that, of the lower palace. Say it again.
Palace.
Say that again.
The mysteries and secret of the lower.
Yes, the mysteries and secrets of the lower palace. And anybody, because I see a lot of people on here that are followers of my YouTube channel, and so they have gotten this many times. I have taught this workshop. Four maybe times. And the thing that always excites me, I'll be honest, the thing that always excites me about this workshop is the amount of males who are interested in this workshop and who always give feedback, who are always like, oh my God, that just made so much makes sense, right? And so to not go too deep, but most of the workshops that I've ever taught, whether it was on birthing alternatives for Black and Latino women, whether I always, as an organizer for the last 25 years, I've always made it important to allow males to see a space for them in these issues that on the surface appear to be, quote, women's issues only. There is no such thing as a women's issue only. Everybody got a mama. Everybody got a mama. Therefore, you should, as a human with female energy all around you, care in a different and more deep way about the peculiar suffering experienced by female women, right? And so every workshop I have ever done, that first workshop that I did on birthing alternatives for Black and Latino women, there were just as many males who were not in relationships, came on their own by themselves to that workshop as there were women.
That's amazing.
And this is how we have to teach, right?
Yeah.
And so with this particular workshop, I've had a lot of really great and exciting feedback, obviously from women, but yes, from males. And so the reason for the workshop and the reason it's called the lower palace is in Chinese medicine, the uterus is called the lower palace. Mm-hmm. The uterus is called the lower palace. The statement is the lower palace is where the emperor goes to become. Who is the emperor? Your heart. Every human being has a heart. Your heart is called your emperor. So where the emperor comes from the vast, imperceptible, because that's not heaven, by the way, in Chinese medicine. The vast imperceptible that we can look up into the night sky and see, that's not heaven. Heaven is the lower palace. Heaven is the lower palace, okay? Your heaven, literally, in the old, all of the old archetypal medical systems used to say that. Heaven is between a woman's legs. Why? Because everybody has to come through that gate to have a material experience. So even in the introduction, when you were talking about the importance of healing and medicine, really focusing on the necessity of embodiment, right? And sometimes people don't understand the concept of embodiment. Poor working class people, they're like, what's that mean? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. What does embodiment mean? What is you talking about? Especially in a country where we learn that we are browbeaten to accept that our flesh is unimportant, that it is secondary, that it is something that we just bide our time in until we can go to the great by and by, which is so much better than we could ever experience anything here on earth. This is a crime, first of all. It is a crime. We come here for a reason. We come here to have a physical experience that we are not afforded when we are, where Ayurveda is concerned, we call it the universal God body. When we are in our spirit form, we are back at this imperceptible one of timelessness and all of this stuff as a part of the great, quote, universal body. But we as a singular, God, right? We as a singular, not apart from God, within God, need to have very specific experiences. The material experience is one that we have. And so God, she, gives us this form fully capable of self-defense. We're born perfect. Fully capable of self-defense. We have a security system that radiates out about 9 feet that's always surveying the environment to make sure we're safe in space. Internal environment is like, okay, we got to be ready. We can't be so ready that we don't experience pleasure, love, ecstasy. Like, I could go into a deep dive, but I won't. The lower palace is a part of this, what they call the emperor's court, of these organs that have very specific roles. every single one of their roles is to they have a role where if they're in distress, it will come off as our emotions, right? But that's only if something is not harmonious within the court, within the emperor's court. Somebody's not communicating right or whatever. But in general, everybody in the court wants to party.
Right.
The kidneys want you to dance. The lungs want you to have sex regularly and have somebody rubbing on your arms and playing in your hair, because the lungs' external partner is the skin. It is how we affirm our existence within the group. It's touching all the time. That's why primates are always 12 hours a day. They're touching, they're rolling around, they're playing, they're squeezing each other, they're wrestling. It is how they affirm their own personal existence within the group. And so to be trying to diagnose somebody without understanding how sociology plays a role in your biochemistry.
Right.
How you perceive your relationship to those around you will change your blood chemistry, will change your brain, will change whether you feel like you are in a safe world or in an unsafe world. But the body is always trying to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the uterus plays a central role, because if the health of your mother is one of perpetual stress, perpetual adrenal stimulation, perpetual lack of feeling safety, you are literally in her body, and every time she gets upset or watches the news and her heart starts bumping different, this is right on top of your head. This is teaching you. And so you, having already had this 9-month experience, indistinguishable from your mother,
mm-hmm.
surrounded by her emotions 24 hours a day, is already teaching you whether you're going to be safe in this next incarnation or whether you have to perpetually have your guard up, where nobody can be trusted. This is going to change how your body even behaves, where its ability to defend and support you or experience pleasure, your inability to experience pleasure. All of this is shaped by a world that we have a responsibility to change. First of all, it's impossible. I will say this. This is the last thing I will say. It is an impossibility. I stand on this. I don't waver. It is impossible for anybody on earth to be, quote, healthy, to be whole in a world of madness, in a world of sickness. This is our collective problem to resolve, to attempt to try to, quote, achieve Zen or have peaceful mindfulness in a world of deliberately imposed chaos is not acceptable. It is not, and it's not maintainable. That even those who can, quote, split themselves off from the suffering of others, they will be bound to suffer by the madness if we don't all take responsibility for solving this. This is why I teach the way that I do. We have to fight for our own personal sovereignty, to secure our own universe. And then once we do that in an honest way, it's a non-issue to respect other people's sovereignty, to not only respect it, to champion for it. This is what ends a world of divides, worlds of racism, worlds of sexism, gender bias, and all of these things, is that once you can understand, one, you are born perfect, and there's too much scientific evidence that proves that. Two, once you accept that you are not born flawed, you are not born filthy, and all of that bullshit that comes from these ideologies, then you can see the goodness in everyone, even at their worst. You can accept that if your sovereignty must be maintained, that you have a responsibility to respect and uphold and champion for the sovereignty of others. Health outside of that is a moot question. It's just a money-making machine, whether it's alternative medicine, whether it's Western medicine. That's right. I am convinced that the changing of this world is something that we can witness in real time in our lifetime. If you had me tell it, I'm ambitious. We can see a radical transformation in the world that we live in less than 3 years. That's my personal position. And that's not ill-informed. That is me, the doctor. That is me, the scientist. That is me, the historian. That is me, the mother, the grandmother. That's all of these experiences that come together that remend what has been dissected, what has been split from itself. There's hope for men. There's hope for men. Do you understand? But it has to be something that is based One, in the perfection of the process. That's why the lower palace. In the perfection of the process. That's why the lower palace. Every last one of you got a mama. That process is perfect. Even when she was broken, that process is perfect, or your ass wouldn't be sitting here listening to me. Right. With a relative state of health, able to sit, able to comprehend, able to listen and participate and respond. You feel me? Right. The process is perfect. And I will say this, last thing I'm going to say. As a part of a perfect process, this is going to be harder for people to accept. There is no division.
What?
There is no division. Every way that everyone that comes onto this planet, every way they choose to live as a sovereign, every person, there's no individualism, there is peculiar. We are peculiar expressions of the one. There's only one earth. You feel me? We are all a part of that one earth, just like every 8 billion cells in our body. Each one of those cells has a peculiar function, not an independent function outside of the whole. We are each a peculiar personification of the one, this earth, of the one, our earth within the solar system. You see what I'm saying? And if we can see ourselves as peculiar, if we can honor our own sovereignty and want to see that reflected in everyone else, it gives us the opportunity to understand that however I live, my life is mine to live. I know this is going to be an issue for people, but it comes up in this workshop about the uterus, about gender dysmorphia. I don't believe in gender dysmorphia. What I do believe in is that people have a right to govern their sovereignty the way that they see fit. I don't believe that people are born wrong. I believe that we live in a world that imposes ill-informed, quote, science that's exploitative. That's what I believe. I believe people can, because we're dynamic, right? Gender is a construct. I do believe that. But I believe that the process is perfect. And if you are a person born in a female body like myself, who has very masculine presenting energy, it's what I've been told since I was 8 years old. And if I'd been born later, I would have been diagnosed with gender dysmorphia, as opposed to when I was a kid being told, why you a tomboy? Why you act like a man? Why your voice so deep like a man? Why your face look like a man, right? It is because nobody honors sovereignty. That's the problem. That's the problem. I'm not a tomboy. I am Cassandra, who has a female body, who has a very big and masculine, and I'll tell you, what people call masculine energy is they are uncomfortable with the presentation of power in female bodies. That's what they call a masculine. You see? So whether it's the deep voice or I like to climb trees like my friends like to climb trees, it is a way to disempower who has been told perpetually has no right to touch power. Mm-hmm. You see?
Yeah.
And so who you love, who you want to present as, what you need as safe, scientifically backed health care, because you want your outside body to match what you feel inside, that's fine. I ain't got no problem with that. Mm-hmm. I have no problem with that at all. As a matter of fact, they have, as a sovereign, the right to walk through this world however they see fit. The thing that I was saying is that we wouldn't even be having to fight for these rights, healthcare, or any of that shit, if we was getting paid the value of our labor. And that's a discussion for another day, but it still ties to our quality of health.
Yes, I hear you now. Cassandra, so scared. We've a lot of people who are your followers who have taken many classes with you, and I completely agree with you needing a learning village or a learning center so you can teach this really important way of life. It is a way of life. It's a way of seeing our bodies. It's a way of seeing our communities, and
yes.
And so I'm really looking forward to your class, Mystery and Secrets of the Lower Palace. Oh, palace.
Like a castle. Palace. Yes.
Palace. Alice on February 28th, 26th at 10:30 a.m. It is a 90-minute class, and it's going to be online. The way you can sign up for it is through our Instagram at We Still Move. Cassandra's also going to have flyers. We have flyers we're going to be posting. And yeah, please stay in touch. Please come in for the second half of this discussion in 2 weeks. Saturday 28th. And so another way to connect, we are in Cassandra's Instagram, but just in case, we will be sharing this video in We Still Move. And so Cassandra's handles are Daughters of the Fates, daughter_off
Of.
the or
Uh-huh.
Fates. So
Yep.
please
Also, I would just add, I've been posting this information, the flyer and how to register for the workshop on my YouTube community section. So YouTube has like a community board. So make sure you check the community board and my IG and other areas that you can, or you can email me if you want me to send you the link direct at evoemetemp@gmail.com. That's evoemetemp@gmail.com, and I can send you the link directly for that workshop.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
Well, thank you, everybody.
This was fun.
With We Still Move. We will be having another healer feature next month, but today is, this month is all about Cassandra and all magic. And so thanks again, and talk to you all soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Joe. It was fun. All right.